All right, Kiss Army, welcome to the KissFAQ Podcast. Thank you for giving us your time today and letting us into your head. I hope we don't do any damage. This is a Kiss-related podcast by the board, for the board. We hope that you enjoy. We'd love you to support this show. Please like, follow, and subscribe to us on Facebook, YouTube, and Twitter. Your likes and subscription helps us to grow and attract interviews and content. So please retweet and share our posts. Your contributions are appreciated.
Greetings and welcome to episode 422 of the KissFAQ Podcast. I am your host again this week, Marcus Almighty on the message board, and of course I am joined again by my esteemed colleagues, Mr. Lonnie Weishauer. Hello,
esteemed.
sir.
How you guys doing?
St. Louis Kiss. I'm sorry, I'm sure for using your proper board names. I'm so used to using people's proper names. Excuse me for that. And then, of course, we have my other esteemed colleague here, 69th Blizzard. Ken, how are you, sir?
I'm good. Thank you.
That's good. That's good. So we're back again. As we all know, Mr. Julian Gill is not with us again this week. He is overseas in the lovely warm temperatures of the UK, enjoying family time, stuff like that. So much deserved break. So hopefully he's out there having a good time, having some fun, and not worrying about the board or anything else right now, and just, taking a break from all those things. So before we get started on our topics for this week, or our main topic for this week, anybody get anything new?
Yes.
Ken, you have gotten something new. So what did you get this week? And if you want to run through it really quickly for us, we'd be much obliged.
If anyone saw that episode where Julian interviewed Steve Ronnie recently about his book, his picture book of his, taking pictures taken from the audience, a book, and has Kiss, and it has Van Halen, Scorpions, Ozzy, all that throughout the years, mostly the 80s. And one of the reasons I got it was because, there's Kiss pictures, but there are a lot of pictures that for concerts that I went to, because he was in the Bay Area here, same as me, and I went to a lot of those same concerts. So it's kind of like for me, it's like a scrapbook for the concerts, and it's pretty cool. It's pretty simple. It's mostly just pictures. It has a little bit of text about the concert before.
Want to hold it up
beforehand? So here's a Van Halen one.
Oh, very cool.
So,
nice.
Yeah. That's the center of that one. That was kind of Cara, but some key ones here is like, here's from the Creatures tour.
Mm-hmm. Very nice.
This was that was the one that I went to at the San Francisco Civic.
Nice.
The third show. And there's a ton of other Def Leppard, AC/DC. It goes on and on. And it has a set list for what they played on the first page, and it usually still has his ticket stub and that kind of stuff.
Oh, that's
nice.
cool.
Which is kind of a nice little touch. So, it's cool. I don't know if it's for everybody.
Let's see the front cover.
But, it's called Pictures Alive, Rock Shows of the 80s and Beyond. And...
So I'd be foolish not to ask if there's any Rush pictures in that book.
Was there any Rush? I don't think, though.
I know they did play San Francisco quite a few times, or the Bay Area. So
yeah,
just not sure if
I saw them three times in the Bay Area. Looks like that was not one of his bands that he went to, but there was Dio, Rainbow, Queensryche, Judas Priest, Aerosmith,
very nice,
Hagar, Iron Maiden. The Iron Maiden one, there's the Day on the Green where a lot of those, groups played, Iron Maiden and Scorpions and all that. I was like, oh yeah, I was there. But so yeah, it's kind of, it's a nice little, book.
And of course, did you find yourself in any of the photos?
There's no audience pictures. It's just, the important people that are on stage. So.
I see.
But if you're interested, you like concert pictures, they're pretty, they're pretty cool. Even though they're, it wasn't, he didn't get in there as a press pass or anything like that. It's just from the audience in different spots. He brought his camera in and took shots.
Yes.
So there you have it.
Did a great job though, by the looks of it. So some great photographs there for sure. So of course, the episode that Ken was referring to was episode 421, where Julian interviewed Steve. So if you want to get more information on that, go back to the episode and check it out. It was a good episode. I did watch some of it. I didn't get to watch the complete thing, but it was really good though. So next up is our news segment. So what is new in the news this week as far as KISS goes? The things that we have here to kind of talk about really quickly is the ongoing Loomis rumors. Apparently there was talk in another podcast that these leaks are preventing KISS from releasing them. Any comments on that comment?
I think that's pretty funny. because everybody knows how much KISS video content we've gotten in the last 15 years. So yeah, these leaks over the last 3 weeks, they are the ones to blame for this. That's the most ridiculous thing I've ever heard. Because KISS has put out so much video. I went on KISS Cruise 2 in 2012, and somebody asked Doc, what about Kissology 4? And at the time, I thought it was the most ridiculous thing in the world. We were still asking about Kissology 4 in 2012.
10 years ago.
And guess what? The only video they put out since that date is Kiss Rocks Vegas. That's and nothing vintage have we put out. Hell, Kent can't even get Dubai.
Yeah.
Come on. Yeah, so it's a joke. It's that comment right there is just a joke.
That's ridiculous.
It's like Kiss. First of all, Kiss doesn't want to pay for that stuff because that's why they don't put it out, because they're going to have to pay for it from somebody, who probably, to even use it. So not unless they get it for free, they may include something like that in a box set or something down the road. But they're not going to pay for it, and it doesn't seem like they're very interested in it either way.
Yeah. So as far as I'm concerned with this comment, when I first saw it, I thought the same thing that Lonnie just thought, which is like, oh yeah, I can just see it now. They had this big business meeting. They're like, damn it, we were going to release all those exact same videos that this Loomis guy did. We were so ready to do it, but if it wasn't for this Loomis guy, we would have all these nice, high-quality versions. Yeah, right. They're not going to put out any of that stuff. That's not going to prevent anything because they're not going to be doing it. I think KISS is looking way beyond KISS for their retirement. I think they don't care about this stuff anymore. I really don't think that it's high on their priority list. As far if it was, then like we just hinted earlier, if this stuff was important to them, then they would have went forward and got the stuff cleared for like the Dubai thing. I'm trying not to say Dubai. I know it ticks you off. So, but they would have clarified this stuff and they would have fixed it. And it's just a complete joke at this point. Yeah. So. Another thing that was brought up, and I think this is more kind of like a joke, but we should just we'll address it. I mean, I don't know how seriously I'm going to take this, but is Loomis little Andrew? Referring to Andrew Scambatti, I think. Is Loomis Andrew? I think that's just probably just a little joke in among us. I don't think Andrew would do that. I don't think, but what do you guys think?
No, I don't think it is, but if it is, good for him. I mean, that's all I have to say about it. I mean, if it is Andrew, good for you, Andrew. Good job.
Well, not to defend him more, because I don't think he needs defending, because he's a good guy and he's I think that he's pretty much on the level and likes to do things above board. And I also think that he's mainly more of an audio guy too, so that wouldn't really make as much sense, I don't think. So anyways, that was a little joke thing that we can just brush off. But the other comment that we had to discuss really quickly is that about the never-ending tour. Sources close to Doc are saying that Kiss will return to Europe next summer. So, was our original prediction that this tour is never going to end correct? Lonnie, what do you think?
I think that was our consensus basically last week, is that, as long as people are going to keep on coming and keep on paying, we're going to keep on touring. Think about this. This will be on the same end of the road tour, their third trip through Europe. 3 times through Europe on the end of on one tour. Has that ever been done before?
I don't think so.
I don't know.
I
don't think so.
I think so. I mean, that's a lot. I mean, that's a lot. And if they're going to do Europe one more time, what we said last week too, that another run through these big markets in the States that they haven't hit since 2019, that's on the horizon as well. If we're going to go back and hit Europe again, we're going to hit these major markets in the U.S. again. So I'm almost certain of it at this point.
Yes. Ken, your thoughts?
Yeah, the never-ending tour. I think they should rename it the never-ending tour, and add some new features to it where they, Paul, how he goes out there, flies to the middle of the, arena or whatever. Well, now what they can do, since it's the never-ending tour, he can fly out there on top of a gigantic dog, a flying dog.
Right, white one, a white. Yeah,
yeah, exactly, like the never-ending story. Movie. If anyone knows that movie, Never-Ending Story, the kids or whatever, they get on the dog, and it's a flying dog. It's a huge dog. Mm. Anyway, it's like, yeah, that's what Paul can do on the Never-Ending Tour.
Yes. Well, like I said, or like we said last time, are we really surprised that this kind of an announcement comes? No, I don't think so, because if there's one thing that Kiss has definitely nailed in our heads clearly, is that they love money, and whatever they need to do to get more money, they're going to do it. I mean, Gene Simmons said it himself before, on a couple of documentaries I've seen, it's an addiction. When you get some fame, you want more fame. When you get a little bit of money, you want more money, right? So I think that it's pretty clear that I think that these guys are maybe just trying to really just line their pockets, so that once they do finally end, when they do end this, that they can actually finally say that it's done, and they don't have to come back and say 3 years later, yeah, we didn't mean that, we're coming back again, So I think they're really trying to just fill the coffers, so to speak. Okay, so that's the end of the news segment. Weather will skip. So now let's get on to the main topic for today. Now, on July 14th, 1992, was the anniversary of the release of Kiss X-treme Close-Up. 30th anniversary of that. Now, first question for you guys. Do you remember the announcement of this video coming out? Ken?
I had to have heard it, and I knew it was going to come out. I'm sure I got it on the first day it came out. But I think I probably heard something like on Headbangers Ball. It had to be something like that. I'm going to say, I don't think it was a magazine or anything. It's probably Headbangers Ball. I probably heard it was going to be out, and was like, oh, okay, cool. Another video. So, I'm sure I got it right when it came out. So, yeah, that's my guess. I can't remember it anymore, but I think that's probably it.
Lonnie, what about you? Did you ever hear anything about this?
No, I did not. I was a little bit younger in '92. I was 13 in 1992. So I don't remember it coming out necessarily. I don't remember hearing about it coming out or anything like that, But I do remember buying it probably late that summer, early fall, when I could collect the $15 needed to purchase that,
Yeah.
VHS.
So, but on VHS, of course, So I do remember buying it, and we'll get into it. But I did not buy it the day it came out. But I remember seeing it and thinking, I love the new album. I gotta have that.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. Now, I kind of came to that a little late. I don't think I got to it like the that right when it came out kind of business. I probably got it maybe similar to like Lonnie, like maybe a little bit later on in the year I picked it up. But one thing that I do remember is because I had maybe a couple of years back, or maybe a year or so back, I had just discovered Exposed because one of my friends had it, and he was just newly joined to my band, and he was a big Kiss guy. I talked about him a few times in the podcast, but he had Exposed, and I had watched that the first time at his place a little bit before this came out. So I was kind of excited. They had another, long form video coming out. Exposed was so comical and hilarious. I was kind of wondering, are we going to get more of that this time? But, he told me, because he was one of these guys who was like really trying to find out all the little details before it came out. He was trying to convince me ahead of time, no, this is going to be a real serious, sort of look at Kiss. I'm like, oh, really? I thought that was kind of interesting because, like I said, Exposed came across as almost comical, and it was a fun watch, right? So this is supposed to be a serious look at the career of Kiss. Now, so you mentioned, Lonnie, when you kind of bought it, later on in the year, and Ken said that he might have probably grabbed it right at the beginning. Now, when you guys got this, what was your first initial reaction of this video when you first got it? Like, did you find some of the interviews to be, accurate? Did you kind of think to yourself, I'm not agreeing with some of this? Do you find some of it cringe-worthy? Let's go to Lonnie with that first.
For me, X-treme Close-Up was how I really learned a lot about the history of the band. I heard a lot of these stories for the first time, whether it's Cadillac, Michigan, or just off the top of my head, Cadillac, Michigan, and just other things, just the chronological progression of the band. I learned a lot personally, being 13 years old probably when this came out. I knew all the albums. I had a lot of the albums. I didn't have all of the albums. I had a lot of the albums at the time, and I was like, "Oh, that's interesting." And then it's really how I learned a lot. Did I think it was cringeworthy? No, because I'm sitting there at 13. I'm just like hanging on every word Gene or Paul say, and just believing everything that comes out of their mouth as just gospel. And then for a long time afterwards, it was the video I would reference and I would go back to and rewatch it because I learned so much watching it. And if somebody wanted to know something about the band or somebody wanted to get into Kiss, I would refer them to that video just because of the history of the band, and then we'll get into the clips that we all saw, for a lot of them, for the first time in this video also. Just to see the chronological progression of the band. I didn't think it was cringeworthy at all when I first watched it, and I just took it as gospel and loved it.
Great. Ken, what about you? What was your first reaction?
Yeah, I'm with Lonnie. I learned a lot of stuff too. Even though I was, been around since like 77, getting into them, but I still didn't know the whole history. I knew from, certain little, books, which were really limited in their, in detail, and that sort of stuff. It was mostly pictures and stuff like that. So, I learned a lot about their progression from the beginning, and that was the first real kind of, bio kind of video that we saw, with just detailing, they got together, and Steve Cornell and all that kind of stuff that I didn't really know about. So it was very cool to see that. Later times now, watching again, I still enjoy that part of it for sure. When they start talking about we love all women and all this, that's the only cringeworthy kind of now part I get. But back then it didn't bother me, or I was a lot younger then and stuff. But now I guess as I'm getting older, it's like they probably didn't need to get into that or whatever. But that's fine. that was the sign of the times too, which is a lot different than...
You're still really coming out of the 80s right there.
Yeah, exactly. With all that hair metal and all that stuff.
Sure.
I thought it was very cool. And then we're just waiting for a lot of the the videos, the other videos live stuff that we hadn't seen before.
Yeah, I mean, for me, it was. Holy shit! Come on, man, stop!
You already went.
Jesus. Sorry, guys. Hey, Shadow, stop. Sorry, guys.
Shadow
anyways,
Shadow
so,
agrees.
yeah, Shadow was in very much agreement with what we were just talking about. So for me, when I first saw it, just like you guys, a lot of this stuff was new to me. Like I said, I was getting into Kiss around that time, like heavily. I'd known about Kiss obviously for a long while because of my sister, but this is when I was starting getting into like really deep diving into it. So a lot of those video clips that were in there I had not seen before. Some of those live segments that they were showing was like completely new to me. And back then, when I was at that age when I was kind of watching it, I was like, wow, these guys are so cool, and you're so impressionable back in that time period. And when I was watching it, then I only thought of the great aspects of it. Like, look at those shows, look at that stuff, look at the old footage, because don't forget, this is around the time of Revenge, right, when this came out. So they were already like out of makeup for a long while now at this point, so we were all used to it. They had put out Revenge, and they were rocking with that album. But I'm curious though, and I know Lonnie kind of mentioned it, and I think maybe Ken did it a little bit too, but that was our initial reactions. Now, I don't know about you guys, but I rewatched it the other night in full just to kind of refresh myself on it. Does your opinion on it change having watched it now in more recent times, now that you've kind of grown up and a lot more about it, and we know how Gene can sometimes say stuff that makes you roll your eyes and stuff like that? What is your kind of reaction of it now in hindsight watching it, Lonnie?
I don't think it's really changed a whole lot. It was really nostalgic kind of watching that. I hadn't watched that in, I don't know, a good number of years. Is the last time I watched X-treme Close-Up. I mean, it might be pushing 10 years since the last time I put that in, sat down and watched X-treme Close-Up. You know what I mean? With YouTube and everything else available at your fingertips these days, you don't really go reach for the DVD and almost dust off the DVD players. I don't use it, a fraction as much as I used to. You may kind of hope that it still works. But I haven't watched it in a long time, and it really kind of made me nostalgic watching it. But it made me just recall watching it for the first time and how it propelled, and how it was a big part of actually propelling my fandom into them, and me just becoming so much more knowledgeable about the band. I don't find it cringeworthy at all. I actually really enjoy some of the things like Paul says about the Kiss Army and the Kiss fans. Because I think at the time in 1992, what Paul's saying about the Kiss fan, the Kiss fandom, how it, leaves him speechless. What he's saying at the end. I still feel that that's heartfelt right there. That, he knows that they've waned in popularity at the time. Revenge had come out, and but we're touring clubs. We're not really touring arenas right now, and that tours until later in the fall. We're trying to push that off to try to build some momentum so that we can try to pull off, because the Revenge tour was called off short because Kiss had waned in popularity. But Paul's sentiment toward the hardcore Kiss fans and the fans that had stuck by Kiss for 20 years at that point, you could really feel, at least I still feel that in him watching that video. So I don't find it cringeworthy at all. I find it more heartfelt than a lot of the stuff. I kind of get cringeworthy at a lot of stuff that they say today, and like some of the modern day interviews today, and like that A&E special last year. Some of that was kind of like that. That's more stuff. I'm like, no, that's not really how that happened, type thing. Where I think this video is a whole lot more true to form. I think going back watching it. And doesn't leave me shaking my head like, no, that's not how it really happened, or I don't know, that kind of turns me off, type thing. I really enjoyed watching it again.
Great. Ken, what about you? Now in hindsight, what are your opinions on it?
I still enjoy it the way I did way back. Just the things that stood out to me though and it just they probably brought up a million times, or the things like comments like where Paul says Beth was interesting. I think it says it was interesting. It was a B-side because
we figured it was a throwaway.
It stood no chance. It's like okay, because Detroit Rock City was expected. His song was expected to be better than that, which partly true, I guess. But I wouldn't call it. They put it on the B-side because it's a throwaway. There's a lot of good B-sides out there. And then the other thing. That Eric Carr was a much better drummer than Peter Criss.
Mm-hmm.
I wouldn't say he's much better. It's a different style. They just play different styles.
Barry Peter Criss is a drummer.
Yeah. It's stuff like that. It's like And then the other thing that they always say: Ace stopped growing. He didn't blossom. He was actually and. Again, he kept growing even up to The Elder. His guitar playing was top notch, and his solos were still top notch, even on The Elder. So I can't believe that. He didn't.
Yeah.
It was just other issues.
You talk about the way they talk about Ace and Peter in this video, and yeah, we're it's 1992, so we're 4 years away from the reunion. But I still don't think, and I get what you're saying, like, oh yeah, we figured Beth was a throwaway. Beth was interesting. Ace stopped progressing, and when someone stops progressing, it's still nicer than the things they say about them today, though. The things they say about Ace and Peter in this video are much nicer than the things they've said about Ace and Peter for the last 20 years since the reunion tour.
Yeah. It is true.
A lot of bad things.
I mean, we kind of touched on what the next kind of topic of discussion was going to be, which is your sort of favorite moments from the video. We'll get to that in a second. But the one thing that I found interesting too, when we get to referring to this sort of thing, is like that kind of stuck out to me too. Is we put Beth as a B-side because he thought it was a throwaway. That's just propaganda from Paul Stanley, because honestly, no record label puts on a song on a B-side because they think it's garbage. They're trying to sell product. Mm-hmm. You're not going to put a song on that they think is complete crap on the other side. Sure, you might put one that's maybe look, some people will say, what did he put Murder in High Heels as a B-side? Okay, it's not a fantastic song, but maybe they put it on there because it fit with the other song. You know what I mean? They're not going to put a song on there that maybe doesn't jive with it. Whatever the reason is, nobody puts on a song on a record if they think it's shit. You know what I mean? I think he was just, I think he was still sort of hurt by the fact that it became such a huge song and, outsold Detroit Rock City easily as a single, Other comments on here that kind of made me sit back and say, wow, I didn't remember him saying that. And it made me sit up for a second, was when they started talking about Bruce Kulick. Like Gene was saying that he goes, that he's a great guitar player, but it took him a couple of albums to get rid of all that noodly shit that he was doing. And I thought to myself, what the fuck are you talking about? Like, first of all, Asylum is like one of the best records that he's done, and you guys wanted a guitar player like that, you idiot. What are you talking about? Like, they wanted somebody who could do all that stuff. And that, to me, there's no noodly woodly crap on that. I mean, Mark St. John's a little bit more dwiddly than Bruce Kulick was. Okay, I find Bruce Kulick much more melodic, much more soulful, and I think all the stuff that he did was great. I mean, if he's trying to imply that he didn't play anything good until Revenge, that to me is incorrect as far as I'm concerned. I mean, sure, maybe Revenge might be his best lead work on record, but the other stuff is certainly nothing to pass over, in my opinion. I think he did some great stuff on there. And I'm going to ask you this question to you guys, because this is what kind of hit me after I watched this. We'll get to the favorite segments in a second. When I was done watching this, something kind of occurred to me. Tell me if I'm nuts or if you think I might be onto something here. I almost got the feeling that this video was done as almost kind of damage control. Lonnie had hinted on the fact that they had been kind of weaning in popularity at this point, and that, that they weren't able to sell out as well in the North American stuff. You almost get this vibe from them that they were trying to make Kiss look really cooler than they were at that time. They were trying to really blow up their image a lot more than they were. You know, like that whole thing. If you love us, God love you. Don't like us, that's fine too. If you're in the middle, get out. Like all this kind of stuff. It's like, you know what? That's just ego talking there. Okay, with all that kind of stuff that they were talking. And you know, Gene and his, you know, referring back to his green-haired first girl that he screwed on tour and stuff, like all these things, they were really trying to make themselves look super cool. And it was happening in the press too. They were trying very hard to get whatever they could, you know, people on front covers with other people on magazines, like Paul with somebody else. You know, even tried to do it with Ace. They tried to get Ace on the cover with Dimebag Darrell, who was a huge guitar player at that time. You know what I mean? They were trying to remake Kiss look like they were cooler than they were actually being viewed at the time. Am I crazy, or what do you guys think? Lonnie?
No, absolutely not. I always refer to the Revenge era as the tough and cool era. That, you know, they're trying to look tough and cool. They're sitting there in their black leather, and you can see Gene's black gloves, and you know they're trying to look dark and mean and rough. You know, and I think a lot of that was like their response to like the Metallica Black album, where, you know, Metallica looked tough and cool in 1991. You know, well, I guess not the response. I mean, they came out in the same year, but other bands were doing the same thing.
Yeah.
Other bands were trying to look tough and cool, and those guys are badasses type thing. It's what a lot of bands were doing. So I think it's them following trends at the time. And some people maybe watching that for the first time and thinking, what are they doing? Why are they dressed like that? Why are they saying those things? Like, that's just weird. Like, why does a band need to be like why do you want me to be scared of you almost type thing? But that's what it was at the time. So, and I get what you're saying, Mark. Like, it's very different. It's totally different. Just watching Gene and Paul in those interviews, and then watch Gene and Paul in Exposed from just a few years earlier. I mean, it's a totally different vibe that you get from those two. I mean, they're trying to be funny and like, we're a band and we're fun, and you know, and look at us, we're just wild and crazy guys. You know, is what they're trying to pull off in Exposed.
Yeah.
And then you get to Extreme Close-Up 5 years later, and like, you know, I'm mean and I'm cool and I screw girls just for fun, and you know, it's really what it is.
Yeah. I mean, it's interesting how that seemed to happen, because I mean, now when you look at them when you're talking about stuff now, they're so much more kind of laid back about stuff. It's funny what having a lot of money in your coffers does. It's funny what having tours that sell out and having, like, you know, 15 to 20,000 people on a nightly basis does for the way you kind of approach interviews and stuff like that than how it was with them back then. You know what I mean? Like, they get Eric Singer in, and the first thing they did, rather than just say, no, Eric's a great guy and, you know, he fits in well with the band, they had to go in there and knock down Peter Criss 3 pegs. You know, it's like it's unbelievable that they couldn't just be content with their position in rock history at that point. It just seemed like they were trying to blow themselves up more than they were. Ken, I didn't get to you, my friend. Sorry.
No,
go ahead.
that's right. I mean, I was gonna say, yeah, I agree with all what you guys just say. Plus, I mean, they were considered an aging band at the time, an old band from the 70s, you know, kind of thing. They're barely hanging on. They're not doing well in sales of their album, really, or the tour. And I agree kind of that maybe that video was try to draw up some, okay, we'll do a video, but we'll throw a bunch of old or classic Kiss stuff, you know, and draw them back in and get people excited to maybe, you know, come see us. But you know, the other thing about it is, you know, they're aging there, but you know what? When they put the makeup back on, the aging stops because you can't see the aging. You know, they go, oh, it looks like the original, you know, group. You know, it didn't look, you know, from the diehard Kiss fan, but from a general audience, it's like, oh, look, Kiss, those guys, they look just like they did in the 70s, and let's go see them now. You know, so. I just think that they got serious and they just tried to do something to create more spark. Plus, they knew the other thing is when we talked about money earlier. Those videos sold like crazy. That one, I think, and then even Exposed. All their videos ever have done very well.
Exactly. All their videos have done very well. And this Sam Loomis has ruined it for everyone.
Yeah. Now they can't put another one out.
Right.
God.
I mean, if one of the Sam Loomis,
hell?
I mean, they'd be cranking out these videos like they always have been.
Damn that Sam Loomis.
Yeah. But it's interesting that you refer to this era as the tough and cool era, Lonnie, because I think you're 100% hit the nail on the head with that, because not long after this, we got Kiss Confidential that came out, and when you watch that, more tough and cool. Like, look at the backstage footage, looking at strippers, checking out their asses, and then getting that one girl to crush the can with her, this is all trying to appeal to the 16-year-old watcher. You know what I mean?
And I ate it up, yeah.
Yeah, exactly. But that's what I'm saying. But they were trying to make themselves look cool, because I think one thing that Ken said maybe was ringing in their ears and bothering them, which was our Kiss the Rock Dinosaurs at that time. Mm-hmm. And they didn't want that tag, I don't think. I think they wanted to still be talked about as the cool band in the circles with the younger people still, when people talk about Kiss, they don't want to say, oh, those old fucks, they want to be looked at like as the cool band, so I think that could be it. Lonnie, what do you think?
Yeah, I think so too. I mean, you look at it, by late 92, even by 93, by the time Confidential comes out, grunge is now the thing by then. By 92, 93, grunge is the thing. And then, well, what was before grunge? Oh, it was hair metal before grunge. Mm-hmm. What was before hair metal? Okay, well, the early roots of heavy metal with Sabbath and Kiss and Zeppelin and things like that. So, like, but they were lumped into that, like almost like three generations of music back.
Yeah.
And I think they knew that well, people were by 92, 93, people were making fun of like Poison and Cinderella and Warrant and those type of bands, like, oh, that was just stupid. Like, listen to Pearl Jam, listen to Nirvana, listen to Soundgarden. That's cool and trendy now. That hair metal stuff, that's out, and it died quickly when grunge hit. And to the point where even a band that was as popular as Guns N' Roses, they broke up. They had their own problems though too. That's another thing. But I mean, they were kind of lumped into that because they kind of came on the end of that hair metal scene and like led into the 90s. But even their popularity was kind of waning at the end because bands like Pearl Jam and because Guns still had like the hair metal type attitude though that they carried with them, even though they weren't like a hair metal band. But Kiss, this is a Kiss podcast. Kiss was a couple generations back though, as far as musically wise. So I think they were looked as like the old timers, and like Mark said, the dinosaurs. And so I think their response was, we got to convince kids or just young adults that we are cool. We're as cool as any band out there. Look at this girl crushing this beer can, and look at me. I hang out with strippers backstage, and you don't like me, get out type thing. So I really think it was. I think they were well aware of that. And ultimately released to the reunion where they embraced that. But at the time, they were fighting. Yeah.
Ken?
No, you said it all.
Ken, you start going first. Where's agreeing on everything?
No. I totally agree with what you said. I mean, I'm just right on board. So.
Yeah, I mean, and it's interesting though too. One last thing before we get to our favorite segments. Thinking back to the things that were released after this, like we just talked about, Confidential came out after, and years and years later, Second Coming came out, which started out interestingly, like they went back through their beginnings, did a little segment about their beginnings and the coming back of the band to the reunion part of it. So it's interesting how they kind of almost had a very small sort of X-treme Close-Up moment on that, where they kind of ran you through their early, history of the band, and then you get over to the reunion part of it, and all of a sudden everything is hunky-dory and they're back together. I mean, amongst those three that we discussed, just really quickly here, X-treme Close-Up, Confidential, and even, let's say, Second Coming. Which of those three do you think are still ones that you would watch most often?
Don't forget the Kiss My Ass video too.
Okay, and there you go too.
There's that.
So let's include that too.
Yeah.
Out of those ones that we just discussed, which one do you think you would probably frequent to the most? Let's start with Ken.
It's hard to say, but of the, Second Coming is a big deal, right? That was big, but Kiss My Ass was okay. It's kind of like I go to these videos more so for the classic, old live videos of them in makeup, that sort of thing, for the most part. Though the X-treme Close-Up was really good because of they had a couple of the newer videos too, even, Unholy. He's like, oh, good, I get Unholy on video, and that sort of thing. So, that was cool. So I can't pick one over the other really of what I would frequent more. Though I would probably say I would frequent this one, X-treme, and the Second Coming.
Cool. Lonnie, what about you?
See, it's a good thing you went first, Ken, because I've been lockstep with you again. I enjoy this one a whole lot, and I really enjoy Second Coming, where you get a brief overview of the band's history, and then you really just get to relive that reunion tour from the rumblings of it after Unplugged all the way through that last show, and then preparing for Psycho Circus to come out. And it's a great video because that reminds you of what such a fun time to be a Kiss fan it was at that time, and how all of a sudden a band who was just left for dead basically had just risen and not only risen but became the most popular band in the world all over again. And it was kind of like a victory. It's almost like a victory lap for your fandom too. That here's my we were all so proud of Kiss in 1996. Like look at them, and my band is the biggest band. Look how fast my band sells out arenas. You were really proud of them at the time. So I like this one. I like this video because of what I learned about the band, and I still like their tough and cool image in this video as well. But Second Coming is right there with it, just because of the sentimental value of that one as well.
Yeah, and I find, like, for me, I liked Kiss My Ass because they showed a couple of videos there that I hadn't seen, like some of the old things that they would shoot out there that I was like, oh, I never saw this version of that song or didn't see this video before. So it was good for that as well. But, that was also interesting at that point, too, because they were managerless at that point. And you see Gene talking from his guest house, talking about an album they're working on and releasing those pictures that were supposed to be for the Carnival of Souls, the record, and it had that zipper faced head guy. Yeah. Remember he was showing that image there, and it was like, oh, well, what the hell is this? So it was interesting that they were talking about that and how he had arranged the tour of Japan because they didn't have a manager still at that time. So it was an interesting time period then. But I have to agree, Second Coming was really fantastic when that came out. One of the things I loved most about that was when they actually showed you at Gene's house them putting their makeup on the first time and just actually trying to see if this would actually kind of work look-wise again. And, the rehearsals that they were doing, like in these little small studios and stuff, those are the kind of things that I really love, seeing those kind of little behind-the-scenes segments of them doing it. So I thought that that's always been a standout video, and one that I don't think they've really equaled after that. I mean, sure, the Kissologies are great for what they are, but as far as a look back at the band in a point in time, I think Second Coming really, really hit the nail over the head. So before we forget, let's go to our favorite segments from the X-treme Close-Up. So Ken, what are some of your favorite moments?
It's more about the videos. Seeing stuff like excerpt from Anaheim '76 because I had never seen any of that. I had a couple of bootlegs back then, a few, but not a lot. not many. I couldn't get my hands on them. But and even the other videos like, Sure Know Something, even something like that is finally on video, a regular video, and I Just Wanna and stuff like that. Japan 77 stuff was cool, and then Brazil 82, that sort of stuff. So all of it is actually awesome, because that's the best part of KISS is them performing, whether it was a regular video or the live stuff in general that I had never seen. It's always fun to watch, like fun to watch when we saw these new videos released today, or the last few weeks from Mr. Loomis. It's the same kind of excitement.
True, very, very true. What about you, Lonnie?
Yeah, I really like a lot of the videos that are in this, because for me it was the first time I'd seen a lot of this footage. If not the majority or all of this footage. I had no idea watching it that we made like videos for like Love 'Em, Leave 'Em, and Sure Know Something.
Yeah.
Because it was the 70s. There wasn't MTV, and like, what is this? This is cool type thing. And I really love the Brazil stuff from 83 with War Machine and the Call Me Dr. Love segment. See them playing like those last shows in makeup in front of that huge crowd. And you're like, wow, that's amazing. But and then what's really a standout for me on that as well is The World Without Heroes. I'm like, I had really no idea that something like that existed. Yeah. I didn't watching that the first time. I knew almost nothing about The Elder. I didn't own The Elder because you're 13 years old, you're on a limited budget. What songs are on The Elder? I'm like, I don't know any of these songs. So
Yeah.
So seeing that, I'm like, that's weird. What? And like, but it made me want to go buy The Elder. I'm like, what else is on there? That's so strange. They have short hair and Jen's crying.
Crying.
Ace is playing an acoustic guitar. Yeah.
Right. What's happening? What am I watching? Tried like Ken the first time you listened to The Elder. Like, what am I listening to? So there's a lot of cool stuff in there, and they all have different unique moments in there. For everybody, probably.
Yeah, I have to agree. I mean, a lot of the videos that were on there were new to me as well. I mean, it's interesting that Lonnie brought World Without Heroes, because I mean that was one of the first ones when I saw it. I was like, whoa, what is this? Like this is a period of time that, like Lonnie said, wasn't very readily available. There was no home videos that had videos from The Elder. Like there was nothing like that. So when you saw this stuff, it was usually on these kind of videos for the first time. And it was interesting to watch. I mean, for me, some of the sort of dialogue that was done in there, it's sort of my favorite moments, because they were the things that made me kind of laugh. When they talk about certain things that happened within the band and stuff like that. And like the stories like Eric Singer talking about being in attendance for one of the concerts there, and he was in the balcony there. It's stuff like that really you can't help but be have a smile on your face when you see that stuff. The one thing that I thought that was sort of missing on that video though was I wished it had shown or had a little bit of segments with Eric Carr in it, like him talking in there. There was nothing really from Eric Carr on that, and he was such a big part of that band. I mean, he was in there for such a long time with them. You would have thought that he would have gotten a little bit of a chunk of a segment about him in there, or have him talking about something, but overall, I think that it's a decent video. I think that it was done for a specific reason at the time, to kind of reignite people's interest in the band. And did it do it? That's debatable. But 4 years after that, they didn't need to really worry about that after all, because they had the reunion come up, and that was that. It was time to move on with the reunited lineup of the original lineup. So closing thoughts. What would you give this video out of 10? What kind of rating would you give this video, Ken? What's out of 10? What's X-treme Close-Up?
Well, I mean, I enjoy it very much. So even though I don't watch all the time. There's so many videos out there, but
I saw that too.
I'll give it a I'll give it an 8 out of 10.
Cool. Lonnie?
I give it a 9 out of 10. It's really, really well done. And it still accomplishes what it was intended for. And that is to give an overview of the band up until that point, even though it's outdated, when you watch it now, that it's, there's a whole lot of more history of the band since then. But it still accomplishes exactly what it sought out to do, is give the viewer the overview of the band. And, this is who we are, this is where we came from, this is what we were in the 70s, and this is how we transitioned out of the 70s, and this is who we are today, and we're still proud of who we are today. And we talk about the tough and cool aspect, but they really were proud of who they were at the time. We've transitioned out of that. We have these new members. We're really proud of this new album we have. We're really proud of the way the band sounds. And they were marching forward. I really don't think that they were doing. I mean, granted, they're looking back, and there's a whole lot of Ace and Peter stuff in there, but I don't think they were putting that out there, testing the waters for reunion tour. I think they were just proud of who they were, where they came from, and where they were going. And I think it accomplishes that very well.
I agree. I would give it probably an 8 as well. I think that there's a lot of stuff in there that's very important to the history of the band. And like you said, even to this day, I think if you were to get a new Kiss fan that's just getting into the band, showing him this video wouldn't be the worst thing to give him as far as learning the back history of the band. I think it really touches on a lot of important parts of it, and I think that they would learn quite a lot of it. So I'd give it an 8 out of 10 for sure. So that's our look at X-treme Close-Up, and I'm sure we'll do probably another one of these with some of the other videos at a later time. But before we wrap things up, let's do a couple of other topics here really quickly that we can discuss. I'm guessing these are maybe ones that Ken decided were discussion worthy off of the message board. So let's give it a look here. So let's try this one first. Is Dynasty a disco album? What do you think, Lonnie? Is Dynasty a disco album?
I think I Was Made for Loving You is a disco type song, but I don't think Dynasty is a disco album. I don't think Save Your Love is a disco song, or Dirty Livin' is a disco song. I think there's a lot of good stuff on Dynasty, and I think it gets misrepresented because of the lead single of I Was Made for Loving You. I really like Magic Touches. Would Magic Touch just fit in nicely if you insert it into the middle of Rock and Roll Over or Love Gun? No, probably not. It sounds much different than what was on Rock and Roll Over or Love Gun, or what they were putting out just a couple years prior. And the same can probably be said about Sure Know Something. It would be like, that's kind of strange all of a sudden. That's a different sound for my band all of a sudden. But I don't think it's a disco album per se. I think I Was Made for Loving You is a disco song, but it's more of a pop album to me than it is a disco album, honestly.
Yeah. Excellent point. Let's go to Ken. What do you think?
Yeah, that's what I was going to say. I mean, first of all, it's not a disco album. It would have to have all disco songs and disco beat on the whole thing through, pretty much. And like Lonnie said, to me, it's more like, it's pop or power pop or pop, maybe you call it pop rock kind of. I mean, it was lighter than, wasn't even Foreigner level. I mean, Foreigner would be considered a lot harder. At the same time, I think Foreigner had like Head Games out at around the same time. I think same year, and I would say Foreigner was a more rocking album than the Dynasty. So, it's more popish, in which they then, of course, went to Unmasked and got even more poppy on that one. So, but it's a disco album, no.
Yeah, I mean, I've always thought that to me, Dynasty was always a record that reminded me of New York City. I said that 100 times on this podcast, but to me, it's just like a New York sounding record. Because they opened the album with "I Was Made for Loving You," it's almost like people instantly tune their hearing to like, okay, it's going to be all like this now, and it's almost like they're trying to pull out elements of "I Was Made for Loving You" in the other songs. Like if it has a double 16th hi-hat beat on a song, there's some disco element, which is not the case. Gene's sort of diddle-diddle-doo, the bass line that he has in there, that's very disco-ish, but it was just in that song. He doesn't play like that on the rest of the record. I mean, the other points are very good, like Lonnie made. Like, listen to the other songs on here. I mean, "Save Your Love" is not a disco song. "X-Ray Eyes" is not a disco song. "Charisma" is not a disco song, for sure. It's like Ken said, that there's more elements of pop in this than there is of disco. And I think that Kiss would feel more comfortable going more the disco route than they would going more comfortable going the pop route than they would be going down the disco route, for sure. As long as you have Ace Frehley in the band, I don't think you could ever get away with making a complete disco record. I don't think he would ever go for it. And because he was such a big writer on the album too, it just couldn't happen. I mean, they even did a Rolling Stones cover, for crying out loud. Like, come on. So it can't be anything but a pop rock record.
I always said that they should have put "I Was Made for Loving You" as the last song on the album. It should have been the kind of afterthought, had all the regular rock stuff first. I mean, they could have ended with "Dirty Livin'" and "I Was Made for Loving You" at the end, at the album, and the rest just keep the rock, more of the rock stuff flowing, to try to keep the fans happy that they were starting to lose.
Yeah, exactly. So another question that was brought up, which I think is a good segue coming out of this one, we were talking about, is this a disco record? Here's a good question for you guys. So what do you think is Kiss's first truly metal album that they made? Kiss's first heavy metal record. Let's go to Ken first with that. What do you think is Kiss's first metal album?
Yeah, it's in a way it's kind of difficult, because some people think, for instance, "Hotter Than Hell," because of that mix, that muddiness is kind of metal. But I'm gonna go to later. To me, even though "Creatures" was pretty heavy, I still feel, for some reason, I feel that "Lick It Up" is the metal album for me. I think hard rock is "Creatures" still, but metal, I think "Lick It Up," was the first one. That, in my opinion, of course.
Lonnie?
No, I'm gonna go "Creatures" though. I think it's "Creatures." I mean, I consider what they did in the '70s really hard rock. I don't really consider it metal. I think after The Elder, and they looked at their mistakes from The Elder, and I think they really transitioned into, no, let's be more heavy. Let's be a metal type band, and they really became a metal type band with "Creatures." And Look It Up and Analyze is very heavy as well. So I think "Creatures" to me is their first metal album. You can really see their tone changing with "Creatures. It doesn't sound like Love Gun or Rock and Roll Over. It sounds much more heavy. Those guitars are much more fuller. Their lyrics are darker. And for me, it's "Creatures," and I think "Look It Up" is a metal album also. But I think I'll say they achieved that for the first time with "Creatures." So.
Yeah, interesting, because I had a good think about this too, because I was trying to think to myself, what constitutes a heavy metal record?
True.
Yeah. Like, what is it that makes is it the sound of the production? Is it the lyrics that make it? Is it the guitar sound? Like, what is it that makes it metal? Now, I think the overall sound on "Creatures of the Night" is really like a massive switch of sound for the band at that point. And I think that even they said themselves that they were trying to return to their more hard rocking, quote unquote, metal sounding record that they wanted to come back with. So even them in their own eyes, they were trying to come back with a record that had metal implications to it, right? And you can't fight the fact that songs like "I Love It Loud" or "Creatures of the Night" are just metal through and through. They're just very heavy. The guitars are pretty thick and crunchy and stuff like that. But there is an argument to be said, I think, for an album like Animalize. I mean, you listen to that album, the production of it is much more of the heavy metal sound. The drums on it are like really thunderous. The guitar is like really in your face. The leads are just like they're just unbelievable how they are cut. They just cut through your ears when you listen to them. And there's no real ballad on that album either. I mean, if you listen to Creatures, you have "I Still Love You," right? And heavy metal purists might say, well, there's a ballad on this, and I can't be really which is ridiculous. But I still think that if you're going to look at it from that angle, they might say Animalize is more of a metal record. But I'm going to stick with Creatures. I think that as a first metal record, I think that it's definitely, that's the one that I would refer back to. And if anybody ever said, what's the heaviest Kiss record, what should I go listen to? Well, beyond that, I would say Revenge is probably the heaviest one. But for that period, I mean, the drum production on that and just the overall sound of it is just very much of the heavy metal ilk. So I'm going to go with Creatures of the Night. All right. So I think we have enough time for maybe one more really quickly before we wrap things up. And here's a little interesting comment. So, are Kiss as a legacy band in history underrated? Ken, what do you think?
I think as a legacy band, I think there's not much talk about them. They're just kind of thought of as, a lot of people think, they're just the makeup. It's just the makeup. It's nothing else. And that, that's the only reason that they're popular at all and still around. But, again, the music, it had to be there to do it. So I think still, even though, they're still doing well, actually now, I think they're not really, I guess the music side is underrated, I feel. We know the live side's not underrated, but the music that supports that stuff is, in my opinion, underrated for sure. So that's where they are underrated for me.
Lonnie, what do you think?
I think they are underrated as a legacy act. I mean, you look at what they've accomplished in nearly 50 years of and surviving different genres and different members, and not just surviving, but their influence on generations of musicians that came afterwards. And how many people reference Kiss as a major influence to them? And how many live acts in the 80s wanted to be Kiss? How many of those power bands, how many of those hair bands in the 80s wanted to be Kiss? And Kiss was their inspiration. I mean, they really inspired a lot of music that came afterwards. And not just inspired, but then the music itself, I mean, it's good music. I mean, we get on here, we bash Kiss for this or that, but man, we're on this show every freaking week because we love Kiss and we love the music. And it's good, and it really is good music. Is the makeup really visually exciting? And is their show very visually exciting? Sure, absolutely it is. But their music is just fantastic, and has really stood the test of time in my eyes, and a lot of Kiss fans' eyes as well. And I think that the national public and throughout the world, I think a lot of people don't get past the makeup. They think, oh, look at the Kiss, that's nonsense. And never really give the music a chance that really inspired generations of musicians that came afterwards. So I think they are very underrated. I think their music stands up to anything, in my opinion.
Very well said. I kind of agree with you guys, because whenever I hear somebody refer to a band as a legacy band, the first thing that comes into my mind, whether this is correct or not, is I can't help but think of county fairs. Loverboy's playing the Ottawa Fall Fair this weekend. That's what I keep thinking when I think about like a legacy band. But Kiss is not like that. Even though they are a legacy band, you're talking about a band that's still out there playing arenas. Still, they're playing big numbers. Still, they're going to Europe and they're playing huge. Look at Daniel. You're saying that when they went to Scandinavia, they were playing gigantic places still. Most legacy bands probably can't say that. And and why is it that a band like the Eagles will be talked about in a much more respectable light than a band like Kiss? Kiss is the biggest. Kiss, they said, has the most gold records of any American rock band. They said, right? So why aren't they put in a better light than some of these other bands?
No, they don't get the respect like the Eagles or Aerosmith or Aerosmith or someone like that gets. Aerosmith. Everybody puts Aerosmith as like royalty, and nothing wrong with Aerosmith. I really like Aerosmith too, but what good music has Aerosmith put out in the last 20 years too? People say, well, Kiss, they don't put out music. Well, when's the last good Aerosmith album? Ooh, you're really going back.
Yeah, get a grip.
And really, and so no, I think you're absolutely right, Mark. People like the Eagles. Oh, the Eagles! Everybody you have to love the Eagles. Kiss is just as popular, if not more so, and has just as good a music, if not better, than a lot of these bands that people just put up as royalty.
Yeah, and it goes back to what even Kiss were saying back in the day, that they don't get the respect in the media, and that's where all this stuff happens, where you see Rolling Stone and all these magazines talking about the Eagles, articles about them and articles about Aerosmith and this and that, talking about their big 50th anniversary, but barely getting a column in for Kiss. But you know what? Where at the end of the day, the fans truly show the difference, because look at the numbers that the Kiss are getting still. Some of these bands may not be able to do as good in certain spots as Kiss. You never know. I think that Kiss overall still has a very loyal fan base, and compared to a lot of these other legacy bands, like I said, when I've seen around, some of these fall fair shows that are going around, and some of these bands have had some very bad end of their careers, like I think bands like April Wine and all these bands that here in Canada, just terrible endings to their careers, and Kiss can at least hold their head up and say that they, are going out on their terms, if the tour ever ends, and they'll, be able to say, they didn't have to leave because they were playing to 10 people at a club. They were still playing big numbers, and I think that they don't get the respect that they deserve. And that's that. So let's leave it at that for this week. Thank you all for watching. Don't forget to leave your comments and your thoughts on this episode. What are your thoughts on X-treme Close-Up? What are your favorite moments on the video? Did we miss out on something that we should have talked about from the video? Do you have any highlights that you think back to during it? The whole question afterward, disco record, is Dynasty a disco record? What's your thoughts on that? What is the first Kiss metal record? And are Kiss underrated as a legacy band? All these comments we'd like to hear from you guys. Let's talk in the forum about this a little bit further. So that's that, and we'll be back again next week. But until then, on behalf of Ken, Lonnie, and myself, we hope you all have a great long weekend coming up here in Canada. I don't know if you guys have a long weekend this weekend in America, but we have a long weekend here in Canada. So all my Canadian friends, have a great long weekend, and we'll see you all very soon. Bye for now.
Thank you for spending time listening to the KissFAQ podcast today. All sales are final, there are no refunds. If you'd like, look us up on Facebook or come over to the KissFAQ message board and discuss the topic we've broadcast today. Don't forget to rate us on iTunes, Spreaker, or wherever you've listened to the show. We hope you'll join us again.